A quick reminder, soon the podcast will reach episode 150. To mark this milestone, there'll be a special Q&A episode. I'll be answering questions from listeners about anything to do with classic science fiction. To submit your question by 17th of March, you've got 1 week left. Use the contact form at andyjohnson.xyz, reply to my post on Blue Sky, or send me a text using the link in the show notes for any episode. Flowers for Algernon is a science fiction classic which crossed over into the mainstream. Originally published in novel form in 1966, Daniel Keyes' only fully-fledged science fiction book not only won a Nebula, but was adapted to film and frequently appeared on school curricula. It's even been called arguably the most popular SF novel ever published. Welcome to episode 148, which takes a closer look at Keyes' landmark story of intelligence, compassion, and what it means to be a good person. In 2000, the US author Daniel Keyes was given the Author Emeritus Award by the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of America. Unusually, this honour was given largely on the strength of just one piece of work, his landmark novel Flowers for Algernon from 1966. Rooted in Keyes' experience as a teacher, it crossed over into the mainstream, becoming a fixture of school curricula and being adapted for film. Set in New York City, the novel focuses on Charlie Gordon, a young man with a mental disability who works in a bakery. He's recruited by a group of scientists as a test subject for an experimental treatment which hugely and rapidly increases his intelligence. Charlie's worldview and relationship with others is radically altered as he becomes a knowledgeable genius. But when the previous test subject, a mouse named Algernon, quickly declines, Charlie must reckon with the possibility that his transformation is temporary. Famously moving, Flowers for Algernon is a genuinely profound classic of 1960s science fiction, which explores intriguingly the concepts of intelligence, compassion, and what it means to be a good person. In 1957, Keyes was teaching English to students with disabilities when one of them asked if, by working hard and becoming smart, they could hope to be moved into a mainstream class. This incident helped to crystallise an idea Keyes had years earlier, a tragic story in which a person gains, and then loses, enhanced intelligence. During his time working for Marvel Comics, Keyes considered submitting the concept to Stan Lee. It finally saw print as a short story in the April 1959 issue of the Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction, or F&SF. It earned Keyes the 1960 Hugo Award for Best Short Story. Keyes expanded the story into the novel, which was first published in 1966 and won the Nebula Award for Best Novel the following year. Flowers for Algernon has been adapted to film multiple times, regularly appeared on school curricula, and has been called arguably the most popular SF novel ever published. Keyes wrote only a handful of other books, most notably the non-fiction The Minds of Billy Milligan in 1981, but his place in SF history is assured. Flowers for Algernon has a straightforward story, and much of its excellence comes not from what happens, but rather how the tale is told. It's written in first person, chiefly as a series of progress reports written by Charlie. Keyes has the style, spelling, and complexity of these reports reflect Charlie's changing mental state. This clever move means that the novel's style helps to drive home both the novel's plot and its tremendous emotional impact. When the novel opens, Charlie is undergoing assessment to establish whether he's a good candidate for the experimental procedure. He's confused by the raw shock tests he's shown, but excited by the possibility of becoming more intelligent. His colleagues at the bakery mock and exploit him, but he genuinely cares for them and sees them as his friends. Following the operation, Charlie is at first slow to change, but then his mental capabilities escalate rapidly. Charlie overtakes his colleagues, tutors, the scientists, and then the foremost experts in various fields. He becomes possibly the most intelligent person alive, and hungers for esoteric knowledge of all kinds. However, he struggles with his relationship with others, particularly women, and bridles at his treatment by the scientists as an experimental subject, not as a human being. When he realizes that the mouse Algernon is declining in intelligence, Charlie begins to prepare to descend from the light of intelligence back into the darkness of his mental disability. Keyes' achievement with Flowers for Algernon is that it's a science fiction novel which is powerful on both intellectual and emotional levels. This is apt given that intellect and emotion, thought and feeling are its subjects. One of Keyes' premises is that intelligence does not make someone a good person. Charlie's scientific overseers are intelligent men, but they too often treat him not as a human being, but as an object. After his intellect is enhanced, Charlie himself is often dismissive of others and callous to those he considers inferior. It's often the women in Charlie's life who try to teach him that his kindness is his best quality, a quality he possessed before he was experimented upon. One of the tragedies of the novel is that he realizes too late that intelligence without compassion is of little real value in itself and cannot lead to happiness. As writer Joanne Harris has put it, the novel's message is one of, quote, love over knowledge, of hopefulness over achievement, of compassion over intelligence. These are the things that make us human. The novel also reflects an abiding theme in science fiction, the desire to fix or perfect human beings. The scientists who experiment on Charlie see him as a vanguard, the first of millions to benefit from a normal intelligence and view of the world. But this apparently noble desire is complicated by Charlie's experiences. He finds that the scientists are at least as concerned with their own ego and professional advancement as they are with scientific or social progress. Without understanding how or why, Charlie's capacity to love and be compassionate is also compromised. With their knowledge of him limited to written progress reports, the scientists cannot understand what they've taken from Charlie with their experiment, only what they have given to him. Their world is one of measurements and IQ tests, of things that they can test and quantify. It may be that Charlie's personal tragedy could be a good thing for society if it dissuades scientists from trying to meddle with what makes us human. Keyes' message seems to be that rather than trying to perfect people, we should instead care for and value them as they are, celebrating rather than trying to correct what makes them different. There's too much going on in Flowers for Algernon to discuss in depth here. It touches movingly on human relationships, the treatment of people with disability, scientific ethics, and Charlie's series of conceptual breakthroughs as his intelligence rises. At its core, the novel is as David Pringle describes it, quote, a narrative tour de force, very moving, beautiful and remorseless in its simple logic. This is the kind of classic science fiction to which the genre should aspire, entertaining and profound, appealing and troubling, and consistently memorable in its intellectual and emotional effect. Thanks for listening. For more classic science fiction reviews, visit andyjohnson.xyz. You can also find the show on YouTube and follow updates on Blue Sky. In both cases, just search Classic SF with Andy Johnson. Finally, to get in touch, use the contact form on my site or hit the link in the episode description to send a text message.